Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order this morning and welcome everyone to the December 13th Committee of Adjustment meeting. I now call this meeting to order at 10 a.m. Before we begin, I would like to read the land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge that we are working on lands traditionally occupied by the Indigenous peoples. Indigenous people continue to care for this land and continue to shape our township. We show our respect and will continually honor the treaties that are signed as we consider our decisions and actions. We have 3 members present and 2 members online. And I would ask those members, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest? Okay, seeing none, I would like to mention we have had the opportunity to review the minutes of our November 8th meeting. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I will read the resolution. Be it resolved, first of all, moved by Member Schmidt and seconded by Member Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves the minutes of our November 8, 2024 meeting as circulated. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand.
I can't believe that was the last meeting. I don't think I think last meeting.
Okay, then.
You have to have somebody else.
Okay, we'll do.
Sorry, Jeanette, you're right.
Okay. Just a correction. It is moved by Member Predko and seconded by Member Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves the minutes of November 8, 2024 as circulated. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried. Well, this morning there's a public meeting scheduled for 1 consent application and 7 minor variance applications. If you wish to be notified of the decision of an application on the agenda this morning, please add your name to the contact list that is on the table in front of us, or you can request online if you wish as well. I will briefly summarize the procedure to be utilized for the meeting. First, the Secretary-Treasurer will advise the committee as to when, how, and to whom notice of each of the hearings was circulated for the applications being considered. Next, each of the applications will be considered separately. Planning staff will advise us the purpose and effect of the applications and provide any other information as relevant. The Secretary-Treasurer will summarize all correspondence on file, and from there, the applicant may make a brief presentation if they so choose, and the public will have an opportunity to speak to the applications being considered. After the public forum, the committee will then deliberate on the proposed applications and consider a motion to pass, defeat, or defer the decision of the applications. The consent applications being considered this morning are B24-09 for 57 Port Severn Road North. The minor variance applications being considered this morning are A24-44 for 829 Lone Pine Road, A24-51 for 84 Valley Road, A24-52 for 2237 Harrison Trail, A24-53 for 20356 Georgian Bay Shore, A24-54 for 1099 South Gibson Lake Road, A24-55 for 2098 6 Mile Lake Shore, and A24-56 for 124 Big Rock Road. At this point, I would ask the Secretary-Treasurer to advise regarding notifications.
Notice of each application was sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and persons assessed within 120 meters, 500 meters, or 800 meters, and to those persons and agencies likely to have an interest in the application. The notices were sent at least 20 days prior to this morning's meeting. Included in each notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the application and a key map showing the location of the property. Other relevant information may have also been provided. These circulations were provided in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act 1990.
Port Severn Road North, to the planner, please. Are we missing planner this morning? Okay.
Through the chair, my apologies for the delay. The subject property has an area of 2,770 square meters above regulated water and a frontage of 178.6 meters on Port Severn Road North, as well as a frontage of 143.5 meters on Little Lake. The lands are located in the urban center of Port Severn, designated residential within the township's official plan, and a narrow water body containing type 2 fish habitat abut the lands as well, which are identified as having high to very high archaeological potential. The property is zoned residential type 4. The purpose and effect of the application is to sever land from the subject property to create one new residential lot. The lands to be severed will have a frontage of 20 meters on Port Severn Road North and Little Lake having an area of 840 square meters. The lands to be retained will have a frontage of 158.6 meters on Port Severn Road North and approximately 135 meters of frontage onto Little Lake with an area of 1,930 square meters. The lands were previously subject to a similar consent application in 2017, in which a lot having a frontage of 20 meters and an area of 750 square meters was created and subsequently developed with a detached dwelling. As a condition of approval, the lands were rezoned to permit a deficient lot frontage for a lot abutting a water body and to restrict shoreline structures. The rezoning also required a minimum front yard of 11 meters, which came to be as a recommendation from planning staff at the time for the purpose of siting future development in line with existing. The R4 zone requires a minimum lot area of 700 square meters and a minimum lot frontage of 20 meters. On lands abutting a water body, the minimum frontage shall be 60 meters. The applicant is proposing to create a lot with a frontage of 20 meters. Therefore, a zoning bylaw amendment will be required to permit a reduced frontage. The zoning bylaw regulates shoreline structures on narrow water bodies and allows for one dock to protect a maximum of 7 meters from the current watermark. However, as the subject lands abut a 20-meter wide water body leading to a boat launch, staff are recommending a site-specific zoning as a condition of approval, which would prohibit shoreline structures. This would be consistent with staff's recommendation for the previous consent B0417. The application represents good planning as it will result in intensification through redevelopment within an urban center, utilizing existing services and creating a new lot that will provide additional housing options while respecting the narrow water body. A zoning bylaw amendment will be required as a condition of approval to permit a reduced frontage. The District of Muskoka does not oppose the application provided the applicant obtain written confirmation from the district that an access permit can be issued for the proposed severed and retained lot for access onto the district road, and that the lands be subject to an agreement with the district respecting the provision of municipal services. These conditions are included in the resolution should committee approve the application. Planning staff are recommending approval. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is the applicant present and do they wish to add anything to the comments of the planner? Okay,
I think it's audio for that. Yeah.
okay, thank you very much. Has there been any correspondence in this application?
Yes, there has. Correspondence has been received from the following. One letter was received from Brad Sokash, Director of Operations, stating he had no comment regarding this application. One letter was received from Kaylee Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stated she has no concerns. One letter was received from the District of Muskoka, stating they would not be opposed to the above noted application, provided that the following are implemented as conditions of consent. That the applicant obtain written confirmation from the District Municipality of Muskoka that an access permit can be issued for the proposed severed and retained lot for the access onto the district road, and that the lands be subject to an agreement with the District of Muskoka District Municipality of Muskoka pursuant to Section 5126 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 as amended respecting the provisions of municipal services. One letter was received from Hydro One stating they have no comments or concerns regarding this application. One letter was received from the Ministry of Transportation stating that building and land use permits will be required and that the new building and structures must maintain a minimum setback of 8 meters from the highway property line and wells must maintain a minimum setback of 30 meters from the highway property line.
Okay, thank you. Is there any member of the public present that wishes to address this application? Present or online? And seeing none, I will close the public portion of the application review and bring the matter before the committee for any questions or comments. And do we have any online? Okay, seeing none and no questions here. I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Rivet, seconded by Member Jarvis. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby grants provisional approval to consent application B24-09 for the creation of one new lot and subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property subject to this decision. 2, that the clerk of the township provide written confirmation that a zoning bylaw amendment is in force and effect, recognizing the deficient lot frontage and prohibiting accessory shoreline buildings and structures. 3, that the owner pay 5% in lieu of parkland dedication for the severed land in accordance with Section 51(1) of the Planning Act of the Township of Georgian Bay. The township shall retain an appraiser at the applicant's expense, or the applicant may retain an appraiser with a AACI, CRA, or DAR designation to prepare the appraisal based on the land value of the severed lands at the day before the day of the approval of the provisional consent decision. And that a draft reference plan be completed by an Ontario land surveyor and a digital copy filed with the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment, and that a copy of the deposited reference plan be provided to the Secretary Treasurer, and that a draft transfer be prepared by a solicitor and submitted to the Secretary Treasurer in preparation for the creation of a certificate of official describing the parcel created by consent. And 7, that all fees and disbursements, legal, engineering, and planning, if any, incurred by the township with respect to the application be paid by the respective owners. 8, that an applicant obtain written confirmation from the District Municipality of Muskoka that an access permit can be issued for the proposed severed and retained lot for access onto the district road. And 9, that the lands be subject to an agreement with the District Municipality of Muskoka pursuant to Section 51 of the Planning Act, SRO 1990, as amended, respecting the provision of municipal services. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our first minor variance application today is minor variance application A24-44 for 829 Lone Pine Road. To the planner, please.
Through the chair. The subject property is situated on the east corner of Lone Pine Road and Heath Valley Trail, having an area of 2,332.2 square meters and a frontage of 41.83 meters. A site visit was conducted on November 21st. The lands are designated rural within the District of Muskoka official plan, rural state within the township's official plan, and zoned residential type 1. There is a provincially significant wetland north of the subject property. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate a second-story addition onto the existing detached garage. The garage is legal non-complying as a building permit was issued for the building in 2021, despite issues of non-compliance which staff explained in the associated report. The applicant is proposing to increase the gross floor area by 61.31 square meters and increase the height by 1.98 meters within a required yard, whereas the zoning bylaw only permits expansions to legal non-complying buildings, provided that the floor area or height are not increased in a required yard. The applicant is proposing a staircase along the exterior of the garage to provide access to the second story. As a result, the lot coverage is increasing by 8.55 square meters to a maximum lot coverage of 10.93%, whereas a maximum lot coverage of 10% is permitted. The tests for an application for permission to expand a legal non-complying building are 1, whether the application is desirable for the appropriate development of the subject property, and 2, whether the application will result in undue adverse impacts on the surrounding properties and neighborhood. The applicant is proposing a building height of 5.87 meters, whereas a maximum height of 4.5 meters is permitted. As this is a new issue of noncompliance, this variance is to be evaluated against the 4 tests, which require meeting the general intent and purpose of the official plans and the zoning bylaw. The proposal to be desirable as well and minor in nature. The detached garage will have a gross floor area of 122.62 square meters. Despite the proposed increase in height, floor area, and lot coverage, the detached garage will continue to look and function in a manner secondary and subordinate to the main residential use of the property. The detached garage is 0.13 meters closer to the rear lot line than permitted. The increase in lot coverage by 8.55 square meters is only required for the proposed staircase and not the building itself. The applicant is able to maximize storage space in the garage by having the staircase and access to the second story on the outside. The existing lot coverage is non-compliant at 10.56%. Mature trees in the rear yard are being retained. Windows on the second story are limited to the front wall, and as such, the height of the garage will not create privacy concerns for the neighboring property to the north. The Committee of Adjustment can either approve or deny the variance being requested to permit a height of 5.87 meters. However, for the committee to deny the variance is requested to increase the floor area and height in the required yard, as well as to further increase the lot coverage. The undue adverse impacts of the proposed expansion must be demonstrated by objective evidence and must be sufficient to override the property owner's rights to reasonable flexibility, evolution, and expansion. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, has there been any correspondence on this application?
Correspondence has received from one letter received from Brad Socash, Director of Operations, stating he has no comment regarding this application. One letter was received from Kelly Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stating the property has a holding tank that could restrict issuance for a building permit for this proposal. And 7 letters of support were received stating there were no concerns regarding this application.
Okay. Is the applicant present, and do they wish to add any comments?
Hello, yes, I'm Jamie Lawley.
Please turn on the microphone that's there, Jamie, and identify yourself with your address.
Hello, I'm Jamie Lawley from 829 Lone Pine Road. I am the property owner. Pretty much we're just looking for more storage for our property. We don't really want to move, And as you can see on the pictures, there is a lot of just stuff I want to hide and put in the garage. And we just got a nurse actually for our school in Honey Harbor for our diabetic kid. So we don't really want to leave Georgian Bay Township. But
Okay.
that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. You might just remain there in case there's any questions for you, Jamie. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address this application? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And so far, seeing none, any online? Louise, did you have a question or? Please go ahead.
True, thank you. This is this property is serviced by municipal services. Is that correct? Is there water and sewer?
Through
No,
the
there's
chair,
not.
Yeah, the planner will answer it unless she directs it to you, Jamie. No problem. So Shania, is there public water and sewer there?
the chair, no, there is not. It's privately serviced.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, so there's no sewer on Lone Pine Road? I didn't know
Obviously,
that.
Through the
that
chair, the services on Lone Pine Road end before the bend, so just past the Esso gas station.
Okay, thank you.
okay. Anything further, member Ruth? Okay, your hand is still up. No, the electronic one. Great, thank you. Okay, if there are no further questions, I will read the resolution. It is moved by member Predko, seconded by member Schmidt. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Community of Adjustment hereby approves the following variance requested under minor variance application A24-44. One, detached garage having an increased floor area by 61.31 square meters and an increased height of 1.98 meters within a required yard, whereas section 4.11A permits the reconstruction or expansion of a legally existing building, provided that the floor area height is not increased in a required yard. And two, a detached garage height of 5.87 meters, whereas section 4.1.15 permits a maximum height of 4.5 meters, and section 4.11A requires an expansion to the existing a legally existing building to comply with all applicable provisions of the bylaw. An increase to the lot coverage by 8.55 square meters to a maximum lot coverage of 10.93%, whereas section 8.3, table 8.2, column 2 permits a maximum lot coverage of 10%, and subject to the following conditions. One, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from the Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And two, that the proposed addition be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And three, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of the decision from the township, only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our next application is A24-51 for 84 Valley Road. To the planner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to all. The next item on the agenda is A24-51, and the property is 84 Valley Road. The subject property is comprised of 0.16 hectares and is accessed from the private road known as Valley Road. The property has a frontage on a little lake on Gloucester Pool of 60.96 meters, with a large portion of the property being underwater. A pre-application consultation was prepared and issued by the Planning Department on July 23rd, 2024. A minor variance application was received by the township on October 23rd, 2024. A fish habitat assessment prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions, Inc., dated September 26, 2024, was submitted with the minor variance application and has received its first peer review from Hutchinson Environmental, the township's peer reviewers. The owners of the property are proposing to demolish the existing legal non-complying dwelling and construct a new dwelling in the same footprint with an increase in the maximum GFA and height as per section 411EI of the zoning bylaw. A minor variance is required to address the increases in order to proceed. At the present time, there is a 62.14 square meter detached dwelling constructed in approximately 1930 and a 26.76 square meter boathouse constructed in approximately 1948, according to MPAC. Considering a large portion of the property is underwater, as noted in the photo above, there is very little opportunity to construct a new dwelling or even expand the existing dwelling. There's a great deal of granite rock that also impedes further development of the property, as well as the location of the septic system makes it difficult to relocate the new dwelling farther from the water. Although the size of the dwelling is increasing in size overall by adding an additional half story into the new design, there will be very little change to the aesthetics of the property overall. The subject property has very limited land area to accommodate a new dwelling that will conform with the bylaw requirements. Constructing a new dwelling in the same footprint as the existing cottage provides the owners the ability to rebuild without reducing setbacks further, and more specifically to the high water mark. There has been no confirmation if any tree cover or vegetation is to be removed in order to support the proposed development. However, the owner should be cautioned if removal is necessary. It would be beneficial to retain as much natural vegetation and tree cover as possible, as per the recommendations in the fish habitat assessment, as stated previously, prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions and dated September 26, 2024. The owners of the property did undertake this fish habitat assessment, which did identify fish habitat type 1 in front of the subject lands. Hutchinson Environmental Consultants, the township's peer reviewers, have provided their first comments to the owner's environmental consultants with a few issues to be addressed. The fish habitat assessment is recommending a number of mitigation measures to be implemented during the construction of the new dwelling. It is being recommended that as a condition of approval, the owners enter into a minor variance agreement with the township to incorporate the requirements of the fish habitat assessment into the development plan. As the proposed development increases the GFA and height of the legal non-complying building, the application is to be evaluated under Section 45(2) of the Planning Act. The tests for an application for permission to expand under Section 45(2) are whether the application is desirable for the appropriate development of the subject property, and whether the application will result in undue adverse impacts on the surrounding properties and neighborhood. Staff are recommending approval of the application based on a review of the relevant policies, as the proposal is consistent with the PPS, meets Section 41 and 45(2) of the Planning Act, and represents good planning, subject to the recommended conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, has there been any correspondence on this application?
One letter was received from Brad Sokash, Director of Operations, stating he has no comment regarding this application, and one letter was received from Kelly Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stated that the property has a holding tank that could restrict issuance of a building permit for proposal.
Thank you. Is the applicant present, and if so, do they wish to address the committee? Okay, seeing none, I would also, I'm sorry? Okay, I don't see the agent online. Oh. Okay, I understand the agent is online. Why don't I see? Oh, okay. Does the agent wish to address the committee on this application? Okay, I see no response, so I expect I'll take that as a no. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address the committee regarding this application?
One member registered.
Okay, and seeing none, I will read the resolution.
Oh, I see. Hold on. Some member of the public.
Okay, where are you seeing that? Okay, we have Rena Rice. Do you wish to, if you wish to address the committee, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm 2 doors down from the property and I don't have any difficulty with that rebuilding.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we have another member of the public who wishes to address the committee. I just see a name coming online.
Sorry, Paul, you need to accept the promotion in order to speak.
Okay. I see a name of Paul on there. Could you please advise the committee your name and address, please?
Hi, it's Paul Scarafile, from Cloud Street Design or RBA Projects as the presenter agent for the property.
Is there anything that you wish to add to the planner's comments?
No, I think it describes it really well. We're trying to keep within the footprint. We don't want to touch any trees. We've actually made the deck smaller, so it's just a little bit of an increase in area.
All right, thank you for that. So if there are no further questions or comments, I will read the resolution. I see a hand up. Oh, there's a hand up from Member Predko. Please go ahead. And
yeah, I just wanted to get clarification from the planner on the holding tank. And are you, and I don't know if this is through our chief building official, but will a change to the holding tank be required because of the change in size of the dwelling, or is this just a concern that she has raised in general, just because it is using a holding tank rather than having a septic bed and room for a septic bed?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe Member Predko that Kaylee Nicholson has just expressing that there is a holding tank there and to give the applicant the kind of heads up that there may be a requirement to replace.
Okay, and I guess the concern would be if it's if the building code doesn't allow for a larger holding tank, that would be a problem they'd need to deal with in the future. But for us today, that's not our main concern.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
thank you, Member Predko. Member Jarvis, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, to the planner, within the report, it suggests enhancement of the existing shoreline buffer vegetation is recommended to bring the property further into compliance. That isn't a requirement, that's more of a request, correct? Or is it something we are going to require?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the reason I didn't put it as like a recommended condition is based on the topography and the amount of exposed granite rock there. I'm not sure if everybody got out there before the snow hit. It's a lot of bald rock, so it would be really difficult for them to restore a shoreline that was never there to begin with, if you know what I'm saying. So, I mean, I think I'm just recommending basically that where, and it's in the fish habitat report as well, as where that fish habitat type 1 location is, would be very beneficial to include some sort of native grasses and things like that, just to protect for spawning time.
Okay,
So-
but there's nothing we could put in the site plan agreement down the road on this? I mean, recommending something to somebody is, I mean, they may have all the best intents in the world, but once they get going on this thing, they may totally lose sight of it. And I don't know that it's an issue. I agree. I didn't get out there.
Right.
Snow doesn't give you much
No, it doesn't.
Opportunity to look at shoreline.
I can confirm that in the actual fish habitat assessment, there is requirements. And there's a lot of protection and plantings that they are requiring. So that will be included in the minor variance agreement.
Okay, and that'd be something that we would be monitoring then as well?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions or comments, I'll read the resolution. It is moved by Member Smith, seconded by Member Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A24-51 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 84 Valley Road to facilitate the construction of a new dwelling with an increase in interior GFA and an increase in height as described, where the existing GFA will be increased by 78%, which is 110.21 square meters, and an increase in height of 1 meter, which would take it to 6.75 meters. Based on the following conditions. One, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And two, that the proposed new dwelling be substantially and proportionally in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And three, that the owner enters into a minor variance agreement with the Township of Georgian Bay to incorporate the requirements as noted in the fish habitat assessment prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions dated September 26, 2024 as amended. And four, that the owner be required to prepare and submit an erosion and sediment control plan satisfactory to the township to be included in the minor variance agreement and to be executed throughout the duration of the construction of the proposed development, subject to the minor variance application A24-51. And five, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of decision from the township, only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our next application is A24-52 for 2237 Harrison Trail. To the planner, please.
Through the chair. The subject property has an area of approximately 4,400 square meters and a lot frontage of 39.67 meters on 12 Mile Bay near the northern boundary of the township. A deteriorating dwelling constructed in 1971 and a shed occupy the lands. Both buildings will be removed, and the lands are designated waterfront within the district and township's official plans. They contain moderate to high archaeological potential as well. A portion of the lands have a moderate wildfire hazard rating, and the shoreline contains type 2 fish habitat. The lands are zoned shoreline residential type 1. A site visit was conducted on November 12th. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate the reconstruction and expansion of a legally existing detached dwelling. The applicant is proposing to increase the gross floor area by 107.69% or 84 square meters, whereas an increase by 25% or 19.5 square meters is permitted. A building height of 6.38 meters is also proposed, whereas a maximum building height of 6 meters is permitted. The proposed dwelling will be 1 story, contain 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a laundry utility room, open concept living, kitchen and dining area, and a partially covered deck on the west side. The dwelling will be 1,740 square feet or 161.65 square meters with the covered deck and 1,530 square feet without. The tests for an application for permission to expand under subsection 42 of the Act are whether the application is desirable for appropriate development of the subject property, and 2, whether the application will result in undue adverse impacts on the surrounding properties and neighborhood. The minimum required interior side yard of 5 meters is being exceeded on both sides. Note that the site plan does not include these measurements, rather shows the setbacks from the decks to the side lot lines. In accordance with the zoning bylaw, required yards are measured to the wall of the building or structure. The increased height will allow for a ceiling height of 10 feet, adequate foundation, electrical, etc., and proper insulation, all items that the existing dwelling is lacking. The height also allows for the floor to be raised in alignment with the topography of the land at the rear of the dwelling, eliminating the need for steps down to the entrance as currently exists. The applicant is utilizing the existing footprint in an area with limited vegetation, which requires no blasting or placing of fill. The abundance of natural mature vegetation in the front and side yards will be retained, and only that within the footprint may be removed. The proposed development will cover approximately 3.67% of the lot, whereas 7% is permitted. Further consideration may be had for the existing waterfront development on Harrison Trail. Many properties on this road have been redeveloped with dwellings having a gross floor area in excess of 1,900 square feet, including the neighboring properties to the west, and some of which exceed 2,500 square feet, and all of which remain in close proximity to 12 Mile Bay. Many properties have a detached garage and sleeping cabin as well. Dwellings with a floor area of 3,300 and 4,600 square feet have also been recorded on this section of Harrison Trail, being the section located across from the Moose Deer Point First Nation Reserve. To reiterate, the dwelling will be 1,740 square feet with the covered deck and 1,530 square feet without. For the committee to deny the variances, the undue adverse impacts of the proposed expansion must be demonstrated by objective evidence and must be sufficient to override the property owner's right to reasonable flexibility and evolution. The committee can defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, has there been correspondence on this application?
Yes, one letter was received from Brad Sokash, Director of Operations, stating he has no comments regarding this application. And one letter was received from Kelly Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stating that a building permit and demolition permit will be required, and a review of the septic system size will also be required.
Thank you. Is the applicant present, and do they wish to address the committee? Okay.
Go ahead. We're present. Yeah. Steve,
Okay.
do you have a comment?
Please identify yourself and your address, and then any comments.
Hi, this is Steve James and Cheryl Graden. We should be joined by John Jackson, who will be presenting on our behalf if he's here. We've been part of the community for a few years. We've been going up I think on weekends to try and enjoy what we can. The current building, as you've heard, is really not livable and it's quite unsafe. We can't wait to get up there. We've got great neighbors and really enjoy the location. And our vision was to just build something that'll last for our own family, including our parents, the grandparents, and be able to provide access for them.
Okay, thank you. I see Mr. Jackson has joined us. Is there anything you wish to add to those comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair Committee. I think that we're completely satisfied with staff's report and recommendation. I can probably leave it to questions, but it's a typical case where the older cottages of the 70s kind of didn't have the durability. The best location was where the footprint is now, in anticipation of the total family needs. They'd like to replace it with a larger cottage at the existing footprint and would hope for the Committee of Adjustment support. So unless there's questions, thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address the committee on this application? Okay, seeing none, I will bring the matter before the committee for any questions or comments. And do we have any questions or comments in here? No. Member Jarvis.
In light of the pictures presented in the report, I think it's probably a good idea that something be done to this place pretty quick. So I am agreeing with the owners in that recommendation. My only curiosity was in the overhead shot of the property, the satellite shot. It doesn't give it any relationship to its neighboring properties. There looks like a property to the immediate west up the channel. or down the channel, whichever way you want to do it. That seems pretty close. Now, I know the setback from the property line is over 5 meters, so that's acceptable. I was curious to know how close that other building is to this property line. Is there any way we can get that information? Or was I looking at things incorrectly?
Through the chair, just to clarify, you'd like to see an approximate setback for the neighboring property to the west, like that dwelling location?
I'm just curious to know, I mean, sorry, I'm not hearing you very clearly, but my impression is, one, the survey does indicate that this building will have proper setbacks. I see that. Is the building immediately to the west got the proper setbacks? I'm just curious. Something we looked at all? It looks pretty close to the property line, that's all. Maybe our the applicants would be able to help me on that. Okay, then the overheads I'm looking at are misrepresenting what's going on there. That's quite likely.
Okay.
That was my only question.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I think we're clear on that one. And are there any other questions from the members or the public? All right, seeing none, I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Jarvis, seconded by Member Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the following variances requested under minor variance application A24-52. 1, an increase in the gross floor area of detached dwelling by 84 square meters for a total of 161.65 square meters, whereas Section 411E permits the increase of the gross floor area by 25%, which is 19.5 square meters. And 2, a detached dwelling with a height of 6.38 meters, whereas Section 411E permits the maximum height of 6 meters, and subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from the Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision, and that the proposed dwelling is substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of the decision from the township only after the committee decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our next application is minor variance application A24-53 for 20356 Georgian Bay Shore. To the planner, please.
Thank you, and through the chair. The subject property is a water access only property with frontage onto Georgian Bay within the Cognachine coastal waterfront community. The lands are characterized by exposed granite rock throughout the shoreline area, with areas of vegetation and pockets of tree cover throughout the remainder of the property. The property is for the majority in its natural state, containing a dwelling, a sleeping cabin, 2 sheds, and 2 docks. The property has an area of 25.6 acres with a frontage of 695.9 meters. In order to develop the property with the additions as proposed, a variance is required to address section 6.4.1D of the zoning bylaw. The purpose and intent of limiting the gross floor area within the Cognachine coastal waterfront community is to protect the visual character of the waterfront community and maintain an appropriate balance between the natural and built form. As such, the official plan states that the size of buildings should be generally proportionate to the size of the lot in which they are located. As seen by the site plan, the total lot coverage with all buildings and structures considered is 0.4%, whereas a total lot coverage of 5% is permitted. The character of the Cognachine coastal waterfront community will not be significantly altered as a result of the proposed additions. The proposed additions will bring the lot coverage from 0.4% to 0.42%, still being well under the permitted lot coverage and unaltering the physical impact of the existing development on the lot. The proposed first-story addition, as highlighted in red, will only expand the ground floor area by 16.5 square meters. The addition will replace the existing covered porch at the rear of the dwelling, allowing for the owners to expand the kitchen. Again, this expansion will occur at the rear of the dwelling, being shielded from view from the shoreline and neighboring properties. The proposed second-story additions will occur at each side of the existing dormers, unaltering the front facade of the dwelling and creating an expansion of 6.89 square meters to the second-story floor area. Overall, the additions to the first and second story will increase the gross floor area by 23.4 square meters, bringing the total gross floor area from 366.7 square meters to 390.1 square meters. The plans also include a landscape seating area at the rear of the dwelling. The proposed seating area will work to mitigate and divert stormwater runoff running down the exposed rock and pooling at the rear of the dwelling, as seen in the site photo displayed here. The construction of the landscape seating area will not require any removal of natural exposed rock and will not be subject to any minor variance to the zoning bylaw. As mentioned, the front-facing facade of the dwelling will be generally unaltered, as the only visible change will be the expansion of the existing second-story dormers. The remainder of the changes will occur at the rear of the dwelling, not visible to bay users or neighboring properties. The committee can either approve or deny the variance being requested. The committee may also defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision. Planning staff have completed a detailed analysis of the variance to the zoning bylaw being requested and are recommending approval subject to the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, has there been any correspondence in this application?
Yes, one letter was received from Brad Sokash, Director of Operations, stating his no comments regarding this application. And one letter was received from Kelly Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stating that a building permit would be required and a review of the septic system.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? And if so, please step forward, turn on the mic and identify yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Clint Garnis, Garnis Designs. I'm the agent for the applicant. Everything Andrew mentioned was perfectly outlined. The second floor addition, dormer expansions really will help with the headroom on the second floor and a lot of the storage areas, as they are currently under roof lines. And the applicant would also like a second floor bathroom on that floor, as we also knew that that would impact the septic and required a septic review as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address the committee on this application? And seeing none, I will close the public session and bring the matter before the committee for any questions or comments. Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the planner, the rear porch that's there now, is that considered part of the gross floor area? Because you said you're sort of essentially pumping out, but is it so? Okay.
Through the chair, for covered porches, they're only considered part of gross floor area if the eave overhang, so the portion of the roof that covers the porch, is greater than 1.2 meters from the exterior wall. In that case, it wasn't, so it wasn't considered gross floor area. But now that it's a total enclosed 4-season living space, it is gross floor area.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Jarvis.
Yeah, I see that what's allowed is 325 square meters, is currently 366. So there must have been a prior minor variance request. Do we know when that occurred?
Through the chair, we don't have an accurate date. We believe it was to the 91 zoning bylaw, because the existing, or the 325 square meter requirement for Cognachine existed in the 91 bylaw as well. Either way, this minor variance would legalize what's there and the addition to.
Follow-up question, if it pleases the chair.
Yes, please go ahead, Member Jarvis.
Thank you. Looking at the report submitted to our building department, the schematic that shows what page this is in the report, page 19 of 30, it looks like there's some underground activity. This is all going on bedrock, correct?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. I don't know if you can speak to that, Clint. I believe it's just expanding what's already existing in terms of the foundation.
Your microphone's not on, so I have trouble hearing anything.
Sorry. Yeah. We're planning not to disrupt any of the existing stonework. Planning to pin it little disruption as possible.
Okay, but Angie will acknowledge it does look like there's drawings showing something below bedrock. I'm just curious to know, get an explanation on that. Page 19 of the 30-page report. Is your microphone on? Yeah.
Through the chair, you're referring to the area for the rear seating area?
Yeah, then, well, it says new sun terrace, and underneath, below grade, it looks like there's workings below grade.
Clint, can you confirm whether you intend to remove any of that natural stone at the rear to site the seating area, or will you be working atop that stone?
No, we'll be working atop it. It's all going to be pinned and built on top.
Okay, one final question. Sorry, because we've run into this before where if there's any top ground cover at this time, you take it off and you find out you've got stuff to deal with you didn't think you would. Is there any ground cover there? Are you pretty sure of what you're dealing with right now?
There is no ground cover there. It's all shaped.
It looks like there is, and I just wanted to be sure of that. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for those questions. If there are no, there is a question from Member Smith.
I just wanted to acknowledge that looks like worked really hard to stay respectful to the Cognition area with what's here. And I also want to give a bit of a shout out here to the planning staff of the township. See a number of applications that are coming in here in the tail end of October, and we're sitting here dealing with them today. So good job to staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there's no more questions or comments, I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Jarvis and seconded by Member Predko. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A24-53 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 20356 Georgian Bay Shore to facilitate the construction of an addition onto the rear of detached dwelling as described below. 1, an increase in the maximum gross floor area to 390.1 square meters, whereas section 6.4.1 permits a total gross floor area of 325 square meters. And the above noted approvals are subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision, and that the proposed addition be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out in the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee, and that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of decision from the township, only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved.
Thank you.
Our next application is A24-54 for 1099 South Gibson Lake Road. To the planner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The property subject to minor variance file A2454 is comprised of 0.37 hectares with a frontage on Gibson Lake of 32.85 meters. Access to the property is from the municipal road known as South Gibson Lake Road. A minor variance application was received from MHBC Planning on October 30th, 2024 for 1099 South Gibson Lake Road. The owners of the property are proposing to demolish the existing dwelling and sleeping cabin in order to construct a new 2-story dwelling with an attached garage. The new dwelling will also have a walkout basement. Variances are required for an increase to the maximum lot coverage and maximum height permitted in section 6.3 of the zoning bylaw 2014-75. The proposed new dwelling with a walkout basement and attached garage will be considered under Section 45(1) of the Planning Act. And as we know, Section 45(1) of the Planning Act requires the 4 tests for a minor variance be met. The entire frontage of the property has been identified as a natural beach, and the owners of the property identified that there are other properties in the immediate area that also have a natural beach on Gibson Lake. Looking at the aerial photographs on GeoHub from 2023 back to 2008, it is hard to determine if in fact there was a beach area prior to this time. The owners have advised that the natural beach was in front of the property in the 1990s, which they have photos of and have provided to the township for our files. After visiting the site, this beach area was observed, and it does appear that the owners have graded the sand area, but have confirmed that they have not brought in any sand since they took ownership in 2016. Can also be noted that there's a storage container on the property. This is not permitted as per Section 433 of the zoning bylaw. Storage containers shall only be permitted within the rural and industrial zones. The storage container must be removed from the property as it is in contravention of the zoning bylaw, and the requirement to remove the container is being recommended as a condition of approval in a minor variance agreement. Staff are recommending approval of the application based on a review of the relevant policies, as the proposal is consistent with the provincial planning statement, and meets Section 45(1) of the Planning Act and represents good planning subject to the recommended conditions. The agent for this application is also here, and they have a presentation for you as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, has there been any correspondence in this application?
One letter was received from Brad Socash, Director of Operations, stated he has no comment regarding this application. One letter was received from Kaylee Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stating that a building permit will be required in review of the septic system. And 3 letters of support were received stating there were no concerns regarding this application.
Thank you very much. And I notice that we have a representative of the applicant online, Mr. Shane Connors. Is there anything that you wish to add to the planner's comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a presentation prepared, but Ms. McCabe did a great job summarizing the proposal, so I won't repeat any of the information. Just wanted to add that the new cottage will be set back further than the existing cottage and will meet the 20-meter setback to the lake. Just also wanted to add that we've read the staff report and support the recommendation to approve the variances and have no concerns with the recommended conditions. Happy to answer any questions if the committee has any. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I see a couple of other attendees online. Is there anything that you wish to add to Mr. Commer's comments? And I see a Justin and a Ryan. So I'll take that to be no.
And no further comments. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address the committee on this application? Okay, seeing none, I will, where is the resolution for this one? I will read the, Member Fredko. Please go ahead with your question.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I couldn't let it go without any questions. My question is to our planner, and through you, Chair. The original cottage is being removed and set back, which is a great improvement to the property. I think we would all agree. But in this instance, you haven't added a condition or discussed naturalization of that front portion of the property by the water where the older cottage was. And I'm just wondering why you felt that wasn't necessary in this case.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the only reason I didn't bring that up is the fact that it's a natural beach. And I don't know if we could justify asking someone to naturalize a natural beach, if that makes any comment.
So it's not the beach area, but it's the footprint of the original cottage that I'm wondering about.
I mean, that could be included, definitely, like a small portion that we could ask them to naturalize for sure, but I mean, I leave that up to the committee. We could include that in the minor variance agreement.
That would be my ask. If I don't know if other members of the committee or the chair would agree, but I think as a concession for the increased size, some naturalization to help with the buffering, I think would be beneficial on the property.
Thank you for that. I would just ask planning if they have a recommendation of some wording that would address that naturalization issue.
Yeah, I can do that, Mr. Chair. I'll just do that and send it over to Karen. I'll just think of something quickly while.
Okay, then we'll put the on the resolution as item number 7, and I will read. I will read the application and then.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay, and are there any further questions? I see Member Rivet has a hand up. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. In regard to the naturalization of this beach, that beach, the reason it's so lovely is because the water floods in, it comes in quite high. The water comes right up to where the sand ends. So there's no point naturalizing that beach. It's going to wash away because I don't know if you're familiar with that area. The water comes right up to where the grass is. That's how high the water comes up on Gibson Lake. So there's no point requesting.
The suggestion is the footprint of the existing cottage, not the beach, to be renaturalized.
Oh, okay. As long as you know, because that, that's the problem with Gibson Lake. There is no high water mark because it floods so high every year. That's one thing. Any of those buildings on there, in my opinion, should be pushed way back because of how far that water rises in the spring, but it just seems to be an afterthought. So that was all my comments.
Okay, thank you, Member Rivet. Member Jarvis, you have a question?
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Predko, and I appreciate comments with regards to that lake level change, which I was unaware of. 2 questions. One, there is shore road allowance that they currently own. Okay, got an affirmative on that from the planning department. And out of curiosity, if they were to stay within the guidelines, i.e., 7% of the lot size, how big would their building be?
Can you repeat that, please? I'm sorry.
If they were to stay within the guidelines, which is 7% of property, how big would their building be?
I would have to do a calculation. So
yeah, I'm just wondering if that would have been adequate. But I appreciate the fact that they're moving it back. I think it makes a world of difference. I'm quite happy to see it and concede that I guess we can allow a few things to occur that wouldn't normally, given the fact that they're moving it back, which is wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, then we are planning to address the naturalization of the location of where the previous cottage was, and we will add that as item 7 to the resolution. So while that is being prepared by our secretary, I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Jarvis and seconded by Member Schmidt. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A24-54 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 1099 South Gibson Lake Road to prevent the development of a new cottage with an attached garage. The approved decision is subject to the following table and conditions. First of all, the maximum lot coverage would be increased to 11%, whereas 7% is required. And the maximum height would be increased to 8.1 meters, where 8 meters is required. Subject to the following conditions. Number 1 is that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And 2, that the proposed single detached dwelling and attached garage be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. 3, that the owner enter into a minor variance agreement with the Township of Georgian Bay to ensure the removal of the storage container no later than 2 years from the date of the committee's decision. And 4, that the agent or owner prepares an erosion and sediment control plan satisfactory to the township, that the plan is executed through the duration of construction of the proposed development, subject to minor variance application A24-54. And 5, that an Ontario land surveyor, professional engineer, or certified engineering technologist verify by pinning the foundation wall and verifying in writing or by way of survey or real property report prior to the pouring of the footing, and if no footing, the foundation, that the new dwelling is no closer than 20 meters from the front lot line. And 6, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of decision from the township only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. And 7, that an area of 48 square meters be naturalized in the area of the original footprint of the existing cottage that is being removed and included in the minor variance agreement. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Ms. Rivet, I didn't see your hand. Oh, there you go. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our next application is minor variance application A24-55 for 2098 6 Mile Lake Shore. To the planner, please.
Thank you, and through the chair. The subject property is a water access only property with frontage onto 6 Mile Lake within the 6 Mile Lake inland waterfront community. The lands are characterized by exposed granite rock in the western shoreline area with areas of vegetation and tree cover throughout the remainder of the property. The property currently contains a dwelling, a sleeping cabin, 2 sheds, 2 docks, a sauna, and a canoe rack. The property has an area of 1.4 acres with a frontage of 78.3 meters. In order to develop the property with the dwelling expansion as proposed, variances are required to address section 4.11 and 4.20 of the zoning bylaw. It should be noted that if the building were to be located 2.8 meters further to the north, no variances would be required. The dwelling would comply with all applicable SR6 zone requirements and the specific 6 Mile Lake dwelling size requirements. However, the relocation of the dwelling is not possible as natural characteristics of the property present several constraints. Moving the dwelling west is not possible due to a rock outcrop that exists. Moving the dwelling north would result in significant mature tree loss, making the dwelling easily visible from the directly neighboring property. Moving the dwelling east will bring the dwelling within a wet area of the property that currently serves as a natural stormwater drainage area for the subject property and neighboring properties. The total lot coverage with all buildings and structures considered is 4.6%, whereas a total lot coverage of 8% is permitted. The character of 6 Mile Lake inland waterfront community will not be significantly altered as a result of the proposed expansion. The proposed dwelling will be well within the maximum size of dwellings as outlined within the 6 Mile Lake policies, and the visual impact will be generally consistent with the buildings and structures that currently exist on the subject lands. The proposed expansion will occur in the majority in the rear of the dwelling footprint and in the height on the left side of the building as displayed in the front elevation drawing. As the owners intend to preserve as much mature tree cover as possible, the areas of expansion will for the most part be shielded from view from directly adjacent neighbors and to lake users. The next 2 slides will offer a visual representation of where the ground floor area expansion and further front yard encroachment will occur. As highlighted in green, the main wall of the existing dwelling is located 18.7 meters from the water's edge, while the existing deck is located 16.7 meters from the water's edge. As highlighted in red, the main wall of the proposed dwelling will maintain the 18.7 meter setback to the water's edge. However, as highlighted in blue, the proposed covered deck will be located 17.2 meters from the water's edge. As per the definition of gross floor area within the township zoning bylaw, any area under a roof overhang where the eave projection is greater than 1.2 meters from the exterior wall is to be included in the calculation of gross floor area. And as such, in technicality, the gross floor area of the dwelling will be increasing within the required front yard, requiring a variance to section 411E3 Part 4. The committee can either approve or deny the variances being requested. The committee may also defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision. Planning staff have completed a detailed analysis of the variance to the zoning bylaw and are recommending approval subject to the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, has been correspondence in this application.
One letter was received from Brad Cash, Director of Operations, stating he has no comment regarding this application. And one letter was received from Kelly Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stating that a building permit will be required and a review of the septic system.
Thank you. Is the applicant online, or do they wish to address the committee? I'm not seeing any, and nor do I see any members of the public. With that, I will bring the matter before the committee for any questions or comments. And seeing none, except for the one from Mr. Jarvis, Member Jarvis.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm probably stating the obvious here. There are no, I think there's going to be, there are a number of other buildings on the property, including a bunkie very close to the water, sauna very close to the water, and some other buildings. Are any of these buildings going to be removed? Well, a privy I see might be, but that's it, correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Thank you.
Just maybe I can provide some more clarification as well. The owner provided date stamp photos displaying that all those accessory structures have been existing since 1969 when the original owners, I believe the current owner's parents purchased the property.
Thank you.
And just a question on that, Andrew. If there are pre-existing structures on the property, are they protected forever? Is there, you know, for example, if there was a building that was too close to the side yard line, is there an opportunity for the township to correct that going forward if other applications are applied for?
Through the chair, they have the legal right to keep the building where it is. We do have the provision in the bylaw that if they do expand the building, then it may be removed. Or if it comes any closer to the side lot line, then it could be removed as well. But so long that it doesn't expand or come any closer to an existing lot line, it will be preserved.
Okay. Not to belabor the point, but if we had an objection from a neighboring property and there was no previous building permit, would that require the township to move that building?
In that case, I believe our bylaw department would investigate it. Okay. But again, they have the legal right to keep that building existing. I can see that Derek turned his camera on. I don't know if you have a further comment to that, Derek.
Thank you, Andrew. Very interesting scenario. Certainly, it's much.
Mr. Woodley, your sound is terrible. We can't really make you out.
I'll try and speak louder if that helps. So you raise an interesting question. Certainly, if a building is constructed without a permit within a recent time.
Sorry, Mr. Whitlow, it's not working. We can't understand the language you're using. Oh, okay. Now we understand that you're not running on all cylinders. You're not well. Anyway, that was, I won't belabor that point. It's just something I can discuss with planning afterwards, but thank you for jumping in there. We have one more question from Member Matthews.
Thank you. I think Mr. Predko had his hand up first, if you'd like to go ahead.
Sure, I don't mind waiting either, but hopefully my question's quick. I just noticed on the surveys that it doesn't look like the road allowance has been closed. Is that a necessity for an application, a minor variance application like this? I know that the property, the dwelling isn't on top of the road allowance, but is that something that would be taken care of?
It's been purchased.
Through the chair, Tony Schmidt is actually confirming that it has been purchased. I was just going to go into our overhead software here to confirm it. But if it's been purchased, then there's no concern there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Andrew, on the survey, it's in this page 252 of the big report. It shows the existing dock and then a proposed dock. Is that a right? Because I didn't see anything on our committee decision about docks being added or moved.
Through the chair, just a second here. I'm just going to confirm what's there and what's not. Either way, this application, there's no part of it that's concerning the dock. It's only the dwelling in this case.
But then just up in there, it says proposed dock.
Through the chair, through our overhead imagery, it looks like the quote unquote dock to be removed is still existing as of 2024. I'm not sure if the applicant just used an out-of-date survey that they used to apply for something else, but in this case, we're only looking at the dwelling. I wasn't informed of any dock being removed or added in this case.
I guess that would come up at building permit time too, would it? Yeah,
that's correct.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Okay. Thank you. If there are no further questions or comments, I'll read the resolution. It is moved by Member Rivet, seconded by Member Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Community of Adjustment approves minor variance application 824-55 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 2098 6 Mile Lake Shore to facilitate the expansion of a legally non-compliant dwelling as described below. 1, an increase in maximum gross floor area of 95.49% for a total gross floor area of 188.64 square meters, whereas section 411E3 allows for an increase of 70%, which is 64.4 square meters. And 2, an increase in the maximum building height to 7.1 meters, whereas section 411E3 allows for an increase to 6 meters. And 3, a dwelling encroaching 1.5 meters further into the front yard, whereas section 411E3 does not permit a further encroachment. And 4, an increased front yard encroachment for a covered deck porch of 2.8 meters, whereas section 4.20A allows for an encroachment of 2 meters. And number 5, an increased front yard encroachment for an open deck of 4.8 meters, whereas section 4.20A allows for an encroachment of 4 meters. The above approvals are subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And 2, that the proposed dwelling and deck be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out in the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And 3, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of the decision from the township, only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our next minor variance application is A24-56 for 124 Big Rock Road. To the planner, please.
Through the chair. The subject property has an area of 3,949 square meters with a frontage of 58.82 meters on 6 Mile Lake. The property is designated waterfront within the district and township official plans and zoned 6 Mile Lake residential. The lands are located on a narrow water body containing type 2 fish habitat. The lands are located within Chatham 2 deer wintering area and partially within a moderate wildfire hazard rating. A large, steep granite rock hill dominates the landscape. A detached dwelling is located at the bottom of the hill near the shoreline, which contains a dock. The property is surrounded by Crown land with the exception of the neighboring residential property to the north. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate the construction of a sleeping cabin with a porch. The applicant is seeking relief from the zoning bylaw, which requires that on one wall of a sleeping cabin, the maximum E projection shall be 1.2 meters, and on all other walls, the maximum E projection shall be 0.6 meters. The applicant is proposing an E projection of 3.04 meters on a portion of one wall to create a porch. For clarification purposes, a porch is defined as a roof structure that is attached to a building and is open along one or more sides and is often referred to as a covered deck. The zoning bylaw also permits a maximum height of 4.5 meters, whereas the applicant is proposing a sleeping cabin with a height of 4.87 meters. The sleeping cabin will have a footprint of 55.74 square meters or 600 square feet and be located in the rear yard at the top of the hill. The sleeping cabin will be screened by the mix of mature trees on and surrounding the lands. It should be noted that the photographs presented here were taken in November when deciduous foliage is not present. The use and size of the building is subordinate to the existing dwelling. An analysis of applicable planning legislation has been conducted by staff who are recommending approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, has there been correspondence on this application?
One letter was received from Brad Sokash, Director of Operations, stating he has no comment regarding this application. One letter was received from Kelly Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stated that a building permit will be required and a review of the septic system.
Thank you. I do not see the applicant either present or online, nor do I see any members of the public. So I'll bring the, okay. We do have the applicant online. And is there anything that the applicant would like to add to the comments made by the planning department? Okay, I'm not seeing any response. Okay, I see.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you now, yes.
Okay, hi, this is Serena Ashford. So the septic system, just for your information, was installed a few years ago, and there was a permit pulled for that. It was the septic system was built for a 4-bedroom size, and there are only 3 bedrooms in the cottage. So it was built bigger intentionally so that if I ever wanted to apply for a permit to build a sleeping cabin, so you can look back at your permits, I suppose, for the septic system, maybe 4-ish years ago, and see that it was for a 4-bedroom cottage, which doesn't exist. It's a 3-bedroom cottage.
Okay, thank you. I see Shania on there. You may want to respond regarding the septic requirements.
Through the chair, the chief building official or a building or septic inspector will review the previous septic permit and inform.
Okay, thank you. Anything further you'd like to add, Ms. Ashford?
Not yet. I'm just going to listen. If there's anything else, I'll chime in.
At this point, I would ask if there are any members of the public that wish to address the application, but we see no one present or online. So I will close the public portion of this application and bring the matter before the committee for any questions or comments. And we have a question from Member Jarvis.
Yes, I know how unusual this is. Just a quick question of curiosity for Ms. Ashford. Where is the septic bed in the, if I'm looking at the diagram provided as attachment 3, can you tell me where the septic bed is?
Yes, can you hear me? The septic bed is up high on the property, like way up high on the hill, sort of to the north of where the proposed sleeping cabin will be. It's like north and east. It's quite high on the hill. It was, I think, since there's so much granite on the property, it was the only spot that had enough earth to put a septic system.
Yeah, no, and thank you for that clarification, because it almost looks like the cabin is on a septic bed, but just from the way things have been presented, but I appreciate the clarification.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I will read the resolution. Oh, I'm sorry, Member Predko. Thank you. Go
Thank you. Thank you. And through you, Chair, just a quick question to the planner. The overhang on the eaves being longer than allowed, could you just confirm that this is part of the more for aesthetics in the zoning as opposed to a structural building code issue?
Through the chair, it definitely is not a building code matter. My understanding was this provision was put into the bylaw to avoid large covered decks or porches on sleeping cabins, which also helps to ensure that they remain subordinate and accessory to the main use on the property. This is a unique proposal as the sleeping cabin is an L-shaped. So in this case, the porch is not projecting necessarily off the front of the building. It's within the footprint. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to, I thought that was the reason. I just thought I would clarify. And I did want to comment that it was nice to see hand-drawn sketches so well drafted. We usually just get everything from a CAD system. So it was nice to see that. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Predko, seconded by Member Schmidt. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the following variances requested under minor variance application A25-56. One, that a sleeping cabin with a maximum eave projection of 3.04 meters on one wall and an eave projection of 0.6 meters on all other walls, whereas section 4.1.14 K permits a maximum eave projection of 1.2 meters on one wall and 0.6 meters on all other walls. And two, a sleeping cabin with a height of 4.87 meters, whereas section 4.1.14H permits a maximum height of 4.5 meters. And subject to the following conditions. One, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And two, that the proposed sleeping cabin be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And three, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of decision from the township only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried. The application is approved. I would like to thank everybody for their participation in today's public hearings. We have one final motion where it is moved by Member Schmidt, seconded by Member Ribbit. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment does now at 11:35 a.m. Adjourn until February 7, 2025 at 10 a.m. or the call of the chair. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. The motion is carried and the meeting is adjourned.
Have a good holiday, everybody.
Thank you, Member
Likewise.
Predko.
Thank you. You too.
Mr. Predko, Ms. Rivet.
Merry Christmas to everyone.
You too.
Just happens to appear.